We're in that season in between Easter and Pentecost. But hey, let's scroll back a couple of thousand years. What were they doing? What were they doing? I mean, when Jesus left the disciples, he didn't say, hey guys, don't do anything till I come back, okay? Just chill, just take it easy. No, they were anticipating the things that God was going to do. Had no idea really about what form that was going to take, but they responded by gathering together to pray. In particular, praying constantly for 10 days, literally wondering what on earth God was going to do next. Now, we probably all know the stories from Acts chapter 2, the Holy Spirit and the transformational impact, the birth of the church. But in some ways, the birth of the church happened not in Acts chapter 2, but in Acts chapter 1, as faithful believers gathered together to pray, to ask God to act in desperate circumstances. And there's a group of people in New Zealand that are asking us to do that. Again, it is called the Pentecost Prayer Initiative. National Coordinator of 24/7 Prayer, Sam Harvey, joins me on the program. Sam, kia ora, good morning.
Kia ora, Andrew. How you doing, mate?
I'm doing very well. Nice to see you. And what a sensible idea. It just seems like a practical response to difficult times. There's a lot of people I know listening to this at the moment or watching this saying, you know what, I could really do with some answers to prayer. There's some things in my life that are stuck. There's some things that seem a little bit stuck or heading in the opposite direction for us as a nation. What on earth can we do about it? And of course, the answer to that question is, well, we can pray. It's not the practical alternative to doing something. It is doing something, right?
That's exactly right. I mean, it's been such a crazy 5 years, maybe more now.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, you're just your previous caller and all that. I mean, there's a lot going on culturally,
Yep.
But also for us as a church, you know, we've focused on, there's never been more information about how to run church well and all that sort of stuff. And we're witnessing a great decline in the Western church. And so I think that's an invitation, I think, from the Lord to say, how about instead of focusing on productions and, programs and human personality, all those things are fine,
Yeah.
but actually at the center of the church and as the people of God, we are a people of prayer because we believe that God hears and answers prayer. And I think now's the time to double down on that if we're going to double down on anything in terms of what's happening in our country, but especially in our churches. It's like, man, let's lean into prayer. Let's be a people of prayer and see what God does when the church gets on the bended knee.
Yeah, because there is an example. You talked about programs. Well, here's the original program. Here's the OG program. How did the church thrive? The biggest growth of the church happened when a small group of people got together and prayed for 10 days. But how do we do that? I mean, we're not heading to the upper room and locking the door. How do we do that as the body of Christ in Aotearoa today? How do we be involved with this?
Well, the book of Acts has been called a commentary between prayer meetings, you know, so I think
Yeah.
I like your passion there, Andrew. It's like I think we need to pay close attention to how much Jesus was praying, how much the early church was praying, and what was happening around that. So one of the things that we're inviting people to do, as you said, is to go back to that original gangster prayer room. What would it look like to join together and to pray for 10 days, night and day, into the day of Pentecost? There's something, you know, I've been a Christian forever, man. I'm a pastor's kid. I'm a pastor. I've been a Bible college, whole enchilada. And like I signed up to be radical. I didn't sign up, you know. So it's something about night and day prayer that really makes my leg twitch. You know, I like the thought of pressing in that way. And so 24/7 Prayer as an organisation has been going for 25 years, but it's relatively new in New Zealand. We're kicking it off at the moment with the small team. But I've been astonished at the hunger in churches all around the country to participate in this. You know, we're getting close to over 100 churches that are going to be praying into the day of Pentecost, and more are joining all the time. And so we're saying to churches 3 ways that you can be involved in this. It's not about praying for 10 days non-stop every church.
Yep.
We're just saying participate in some way over those 10 days. So there's some larger churches around the country that are doing the full 10 days, night and day. There are some churches just running a prayer room for 24 hours. We're uniting here in Napier with churches all around the city to pray with one central prayer room to cover those 10 days, night and day, into prayer in the day of Pentecost. But we're creating rooms where people can go and pray. And it's not about a human personality or big production. The celebrity's Jesus. We want to go into a space and pray. And it's tragic to me that you know, Jesus was like, man, I want to, you know, house of prayer for all nations is his heart for this thing.
Yeah.
And to find a prayer room these days, you've got to go to a hospital or an airport. And so I'm like, how about we create some prayer rooms in churches all around the country where people people can come and pray. And there's the stories that emerge out of prayer are we know that God hears and answers prayer, but there's a reason it's so contested, because there is an enemy that does not want his people praying or the church praying. And we've now got $1 trillion, what Paul would call principality and power, distracting us into spiritual oblivion. And so we've got to fight for this thing again in our churches and in our personal lives, certainly in the midst of all that swirling around culturally.
It seems so simple, and yet it's so powerful indeed. And hey, look, as you say, there's no formula for this. It's not like, hey, this is how we do it at 24/7. Here's the program, fill in these slots. But I love the idea as well of saying, let's have a space. Let's have some geography, a part of the whenua where we come together, perhaps from different churches, certainly from different backgrounds, different understanding of faith, because no offense to Zoom, and we're chatting on Zoom at the moment, but that's only going to get you so far, bro. There's nothing like being together to pray. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Celtics used to talk about thin places, this kind of like where people, you walk into a prayer room. I've done lots of these prayer rooms. You walk into that room after it's been going for a day and you feel it.
Yeah.
And, we've got stories of atheists walking into prayer rooms who encounter the presence of God, whose hearts melt because there's something about it's always meant to be embodied,
Yep.
and it's always meant to be something physical and tangible. And so going into a space that's been curated to be conducive to prayer, where people are praying, there's something very special about that. And it's interesting because a lot of people struggle to pray, certainly if it's the thought of praying for an hour, and you almost universally the experience is you walk into a prayer room, the hour goes like that, because you've just got so much that's conducive to meeting with God and to praying. But also, I think, I want to encourage people to be praying those contending prayers as well. Now is a time to be praying for God to pour out His Spirit on the church, to revive the church, to rewire our broken culture. And again, history, the hinge of history is the bended knee. It's like, I think we've got to take this very, very seriously. I think there's an invitation to pray, to lean into that at this particular time in New Zealand.
So the Pentecost Prayer Initiative, certainly if there's pastors, prayer leaders, church intercessors listening at the moment, they can be a part of it. They can help coordinate with other people. But what about for somebody who's just listening to this at the moment going, oh, I wonder if that's happening in my community. I wonder if that's happening in my church. Can people just connect as individuals listening in towns and cities across New Zealand?
Yeah, there are. So if people head to our website, they can get in touch with us. We've got prayer rooms happening, as I say, right across the country. We'll be able to find a church in your local city that's engaged with this and put you in touch so that you can be part of it. But it's very simple to run a prayer room. Anyone can set this up. No pastor alive is going to oppose someone setting up a prayer room, particularly into the day of Pentecost, and particularly because it's uniting together to pray. There's something so powerful about that. Mark Sayers, the brain that he is over in Oz, he interviewed this very dry but fascinating church historian called Stuart Piggin. And he said, preceding renewal movements throughout all of history, 3 things have taken place. The first thing is that there has been a devotion to prayer has just really stirred up. People have got sick of the cultural barrenness and a desire to pray. Secondly, there's been unity. Like people have set aside all these differences to pray. And we've seen that with things like Open Heaven. We've seen that with this initiative. And the third thing that arises out of this is a heightened expectation. Aslan's on the move. And there's a sense of faith that starts building as people do that. And so I'm in let's just get involved. Let's get amongst it. 24/7 is not making money out of it. There's no other agenda. I'm volunteering this thing, man. But there's a conviction that is all around the country now where it's like, how about we lean into being a people of prayer and see what God does?
Now, a particular season, a particular focus as we do head towards Pentecost, and a good reason for that. But hey, it doesn't matter. Like, okay, Pentecost now, we can stop, we can do something else. I mean, just having a group of people who are committed to pray regularly, to pray round the clock, to pray for our nation. That is what 24/7 prayer is all about. And honestly, Sam, if people are concerned about what's happening in our country, a couple of things you could do. Couple of things. One is you could moan about it on Facebook and see how far that gets you. Or you could gather together with other people, even people you don't like, and pray that God would move in our nation. One of these strategies works. You figure out which one's best for you. No judgment. If people do want to connect with this and be a part of it, Sam, just finally, what's the website? How do they make it happen?
24-7prayer.nz, or just Google 24/7 Prayer NZ. You'll see us pop up.
Sam, thank you for the initiative. Thank you for taking the time to chat with us today. All the best.
Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.